Heart Sutra in Tuvan language. The Jeremics. Thus did I heard at one time, the Bhagavan was dwelling on Master's Vulture mountain in Rajagriha together with the great community of monks, the community of Bodhisattvas. At that time, Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unseized, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including aging and death and extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment, Shariputra. Therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration, without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, who also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, and the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared that Yatha Gate Gate Para Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisvaha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from the concentration and recommended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated, even that the Tathagata's rituals, the Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharadodiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. I prostrated the gathering of Dakinis in the three chakras, who abide in the holy yoga of using space by your powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation. Look after practitioners like a mother or child. Akasamaraza Shadara Samaraya Agara Samarata Shadara Samaraya By the teachings of the three supreme truths possessing the power of truth, may in or out hindrances be transformed, may they be dispelled, may they be pacified, may they be completely pacified. Opposed to the be completely pacified, may the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified, may we be separated from problems and free from problems, harmful conditions to Dharma, in accord with Dharma, and may there be auspicious, perfectly happiness.
Yeah, that's very under. That's under. Juju was that you soon Saturday. Near the Shashan. This is the Dharma you have.
Simultaneous.
Juju got it. Okay, she got it. Alle or each on didn't know more. Didn't know more. Did it? No.
So the translation will be simultaneous. So with regard to Bodhisattva Avatara, guide to the Bodhisattva way of life, we have finished the first 3 chapters and we'll stop there without going further into the text. So this is the last day of our discourse. I was quite concerned in the beginning because of my cold, but concerned about how the teaching would go. But we finished the teaching in the last 3 days. I'm very happy to have given the teaching. Dharma is about reflecting on the points of practice on a daily basis, but not to be left aside after listening to the teachings from a master. In my case, for example, since the age of 6 or 7, I started memorizing texts and prayers, and then in time I started learning the collected topics and logic. In other words, while studying, I also was reflecting on the meaning. So you should use what I have taught you as an opener, door opener, and then study the text on a daily basis and reflect on the meaning, and in this way make transformation, progress within your mind. So usually we talk about making the Dharma, the mind to flow with the Dharma, which means on a daily basis you should use your mind, body and speech, and use them so that they are in accord with the practice of the Dharma. So for the body and the speech to be in accord with the Dharma practice, your mind primarily has to be in accord with the Dharma. Of course, it will not happen right away. 100% transformation will not happen right in the beginning. You can start with 1%, then increase to 10 and 20 and 30% and so forth. And then gradually you can make your mind more attuned to the Dharma, more number of percentage. So when your mind is during the daytime attuned to the Dharma, then even in your dream, when you would also have dreams where you analyze, you would be analyzing or examining the teachings. And so when that happens in dream, because the mind is subtler, it has more impact on the mind. It's more powerful to leave an impact. And then, therefore, in Tantra, there are practices where you use the dreaming state of mind for practice. So during waking state, when you are able to tune your mind to Dharma, then that will also happen in dream. You will be thinking about Dharma even in dream. And not only that, if you pay more attention to the practice of the Dharma during the waking state, and then when you go to sleep, when you go to bed, first have a good positive state of mind in accord with the Dharma, and that so that the sleep, even in sleep, your mind in the sleep state would be virtuous. So therefore, in the mental states, the sleep, regret, and then analysis and investigation are considered as variable mental states. And therefore, this is how why it's said. So with regard to sleep, if you go to sleep with a positive mind before going to bed, then that sleep turns into positive virtue. And then if you go to sleep with a negative state of mind, then the mind state in the sleep also becomes negative. And similarly, this is the case with regret. When you regret what you have, something good that you have done, that is negative. And when you regret something that which is bad, then that is positive. And similarly, the same principle works for investigation and analysis. So, in other words, what is important is familiarization. So keep this in mind, everyone. We'll meet again next time, and at that time, when you think back about yourself, then in retrospect you should have this confidence that you have reduced in your attachment and anger, these negative emotions. And if that has happened, then our discourse on the Dharma, listening to the Dharma and me teaching you the Dharma, has served its purpose. Otherwise, if you are not able to make any difference in your mind, no transformation happens in you, even after years and years of study and reflection, listening to teachings, then the teachings will not have served its purpose. So therefore, it is very important to make the Dharma effective work for your transformation. So regarding the Guide to Bodhisattva way of life, it's translated in Russian. in English also regarding teachings of Buddhism, and also about there are books on Buddhism and books from the dialogues between the Buddhists and scientists. And then there are books in English, which are my teachings in books on my teachings on the Dharma, which of which there are translations in Russian. I had discussion about this. If you could have a program, a project to translate texts from the collection of Tengyur, the translated exegetical treatises of Indian masters, books such as those written by Nagarjuna and Asanga and so forth. So it would be good. Cherbatsky. So Cherbatsky has translated Dharmakirti's text on Pramana. His Holiness is mentioning the Pramana Vartika. So regarding books on logic and text on logic and epistemology, there is not many in the Pali scripture. So regarding pramana or logic and epistemology, I've heard that Dignaka's pramana praveshaya, or the door to logic, is translated. It was translated in Chinese. Other than that, it seems there are no texts on logic and epistemology translated from Indian language into Chinese, like those texts written by the 7 texts written by Dharmakirti. So in Tibet we have this tradition which is called the lions, the 2 lions neck to neck. So the 2 lions referring to pramana and madhyamaka philosophy. So when 2 lions cross their necks facing in different directions, then they would have no reason to fear anything. So similarly, when you use to demonstrate the teachings of Madhyamaka, when you use the logic, the Pramana tradition, then it's considered these 2 lines being brought together, neck to neck. Regarding the study of Pramana text, after studying Pramana Vartika, what the new insight that I gained is that when I hear people talking or when I think about some point, I always begin to check the reason, try to find the reason why such and such thing is said, or why such and such things should be this way. So when people talk about science, scientists, when they explain things, now I always have this inquisitive kind of, and doing this in an inquiry. Why he's saying this? Why? What is the reason behind this? And all. And then in India, there is a tradition where when I have dialogues with scientists. Of course, they are all experts. They are in their own fields of science. Um, and they, of course, are very highly learned and experts. So when I listen to their talks, I always find some space for argument, and I always see some contradiction. Because they said this, then in that case, if something is this, it has to be this. And so in this way, I frankly, because I became very friendly with these people after these scientists may have made their presentations from their own field of study and research. So of course they know their subjects, what they are explaining in depth, and they are fully confident. And I tell them this, and then I raise the question. And when I raise the questions, they say, "Oh, I have to think about this." So why this inquiry happens in me is because of having learned the logic of Brahmana texts. So you always try to say if something is A, it has to be B, and if it's B, then it has to be so and so. And so these really are helpful. So in Tibetan, we have the translations of Dharmakirti's, the Dhargninakar's Brahmana Samuchaya, and then also the Dharmakirti's 7 texts, and also Chandrakshita's Tattva Samgraha. And so we have all these texts on Pramana, logic and epistemology, which is only in Tibetan translation and not others. And then in the Mongolian, Inner and Outer Mongolia, and then the ethnic Mongolian regions of the Russian Federation. In these regions, people have studied Dharma and philosophy the way it is studied in the Tibetan tradition. In Tibet, as I said before, there were many scholars from these regions of Russian Federation and Mongolia. And so logic and epistemology has become an important part of their study. And then Sakyapandita wrote his text on the treasury of logic. And then from the times of Chavache Jisenge and these Kadamba masters, the study, a rigorous study of logic and epistemology developed in Tibet and spread in Tibet. It is very important subject. It is not only important for studying Buddhism and Buddhist philosophy, but also using these logic and logical arguments for studying other subjects, modern subjects, is useful. So in one of our Mind and Life conferences, one of the renowned and respected scientists said to me, in your tradition, you have this study of logic and studying different subjects through logic and dialectical debate. And he asked me if it could be used, if the same logic can be used in other subjects. And I said, yes, it can be used. So these days we have in Tibetan schools, secular schools, students are taught the logic that are studied in the monastic institutions, and they use this logical debate in the study of language, grammar, and also science. They use it in studying science. So of course Tibetan still lacks the vocabulary, science, and other subjects, modern subjects, but we have used this dialectical debate in the schools to study the different subjects. And so you too should take more interest in studying logic and epistemology. If you could do that, then in Russia, so of course Buddhism is recognized as a religion in Russia, and you are traditionally Buddhist, and particularly following the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So since you have this religion, Buddhism as your traditional religion, I mean, there's no difference between male and female, and also, of course, you can. There are monastics who have to, of course, keep their observe their vows. But with regard to study, there's no difference between men and women. So in the schools in these Russian, traditionally Buddhist republics, if you could use logic in your study of or teaching of the different subjects using debate, dialectical debate, it would be good. Of course, inside China, there is so much restriction on study of Buddhism. But in some of the, in some of the Chinese monasteries, there are people who take interest in studying dialectical debate from Tibetan teachers, inviting them. And when people have difficulty inviting Tibetan teachers in their monasteries or in their institutions, then they also go to Taiwan to study Tibetan Buddhist dialectical debate. So whether you're a Buddhist or not, of course, studying whether you are part of the Buddhist republic, I mean, republics which are Buddhist in Russia or not, of course, you can use dialectical debate in your study. We should start some curriculum and have some book, and use, first of all, you should experiment in some schools. So there's nothing, we are not talking about giving teaching on religious teaching as such, but using logic as an academic subject. And then after experimenting it for 2 years or so, and when you find it beneficial, then you should increase the number of schools in which these can be taught, increasing it from 1 to 2, from 1 or 2 to 10, 20, and so forth. And then, as I said before, regarding the secular ethics, it is something in the world where we have 7 billion people, amongst whom there is not a single person who deliberately wants to create problem, suffering. But many of these problems and suffering are um, our own creation, human creation. So therefore, there's something missing in the modern education system. So it's very clear that something is missing in it. For example, in Japan, it's a Buddhist country, but it's modernized, and the system of education they have follows the modern educational system. Of course, they have Buddhism, but they have religions, mainly Buddhism, but they use it for merely doing some rituals, prayers, and not studying the teaching of the Buddha. And so they're not able to go deep into the meaning of the Buddhism. Although Japan is a Buddhist society, but people who are raised in this kind of environment where there is so much emphasis on the modern education system, there are many young people who commit suicide, and the number is increasing there. In Ladakh, for example, let alone others, but in the past, people have not heard of suicide in Ladakh, amongst Ladakhis. But recently, people have started, and its number is increasing. The suicidal case is increasing in Ladakh. And in Sweden, for example, the society it's a socialist country, and the government, of course, has a very strong principle of looking after the people for social benefit, social rights, and welfare status. Welfare state. But then, and the difference, the gap between poor and rich is very small, but it's maybe increasing. But then the number of suicide case is increasing. So what is wrong there? So there is a big difference between the gap between rich and poor, although there is also the material progress. And then suicide is also, there are many suicide cases in China as well. So if you look around the world, whether they are materially developed or not, you'll see that the more advanced, materially advanced countries have more problems. And then there is more corruption, and because of that, many people are unhappy. So if we just say, oh, of course this can happen in society, and just leave it at there, or if you just if you are following theistic religion like Christianity or Muslim, people could say they make prayers to their God. And as Buddhist, people could also make your prayers. But then we cannot blame for all this, blame God or for all these problems. So and so the Buddha's teaching about you are the master of yourself is very good. He has not said, he has not proclaimed to have the power to give happiness to us. But he said, I have shown you the path to liberation, but liberation is in your hands. So he has said that my responsibility is to show you the path to liberation, but whether liberation you reach it or not, it's up to you. And then Buddha also has said, the Buddhas, the sages, do not wash away the sins of sentient beings, nor do they take out the suffering of them, but by showing the truth. And they cannot take away the sins of sentient beings with their hands, and nor can they transpose their knowledge, omniscient knowledge, in us. But how can a Buddha help us is, as Buddha has said, it's ignorance which is the cause of suffering, and therefore we have to. Therefore, he has shown the truth, and we have to integrate the teaching within ourselves and practice it, so that we can overcome this ignorance. So, each and every one of us, is part of the 7 billion human beings. So in my case, I'm 77. I cannot say, oh, my life has gone this way, and I don't care whatever happens in the future. But I should think about the Bodhisattva vows that I have taken, and the aspiring bodhicitta that I have generated. And you also have generated aspiring bodhicitta and taken Bodhisattva vows. And on a daily basis, having done that, you have also vowed to work for the welfare of others. And therefore, using the verse, you have pledged that you will remind yourself of the Bodhisattva practice and bodhicitta every day, 3 times in the morning, in the day, and 3 times at night, by using texts such as the verse for refuge and bodhicitta. So otherwise, having pledged you to work for the sentient beings of others, but if you actually don't practice it, then you would be hypocrite. So usually what we do is, when it comes to selfish goals, we are very practical. When it comes to actually helping others, then we actually make prayers and blink our eyes in prayers. And when it comes to selfish goals, we try to deceive others and be dishonest. So I'm not saying that I think this way or I'm doing this kind of thing, but in the last 10, 15 years, I've met many scientists, and I have had many conferences with them, and we discuss about the problem in the world, and what we sum up is that compassion, love and compassion is lacking in society. Sometime somewhere in San Francisco, in one of my meetings, people have said that there's violence amongst the youth and restlessness in their society. So there were scientists, medical doctors, and also social workers. So the meeting went on for 3 days. So all of the people, the participants, unanimously agreed that there's lack of love and compassion in society, and particularly in families. And these days, people, they also say that both the parents go to work and then they don't they don't have the time to give love by staying with their children. So all these problems in society is recognized and to be so because of lack of love and compassion. And then amongst educationists, many say that in the existing education system, there's lack of the teaching on morality, ethical morality. So I remember very clearly in Bologna, in Italy, I went there. They invited me to and conferred upon me the honorary degree. So I'm very clear. I have a very clear memory of that. So during the ceremony for the honorary degree, of course, I had to put on some robe and hat, and then they also they also offered me a ring. So as a Buddhist monk, I'm not supposed to wear a ring, but to go to follow the custom, I put on the ring as well. So therefore, this is one reason why I remember this clearly. So Bologna University, they celebrated the 1000th anniversary, of the founding of that university. And that was one reason why I remember it clearly also. So for 1000 years in the West, separate educational institution was set up. So 1000 years ago, this happened, and therefore, at that time, the religious side took care of moral ethics. Regarding this, the churches took responsibility. Perhaps it was okay at that time. And then in time, this influence of religious education declined, and then people lost faith in religions. So as this happened, and then there was nobody taking responsibility on teaching about moral ethics. In the education system, they didn't care about promoting warm-heartedness, which was left to the religious institutions. But then the religious institutions were not effective, and therefore there was lack of anybody taking responsibility of teaching moral ethics. In Russia also, there are cases of people killing others and shooting in schools and other places, and this also happens in America. And so there's so much street violence. Just recently, in America, there was killings. In India also. In newspapers every day there's news. There's cases of rape cases. So these are really sad. So what this shows is that the individuals lack any sense of moral ethics, and then immorality has actually seeped into them so that it has become their habit. And therefore, it's very difficult for these problems to be solved, to solve these problems through religions. So far, this has been the case, and it is going to be difficult for religions to solve these problems. Now, therefore, what we have to rely on is in the existing educational system, we have to teach moral ethics. So everyone considers education to be very important everywhere in the world, from the kindergarten up to the university levels. Education is considered very important, so we should we should teach moral ethics in education. So, of course, regarding physical health, people are taught how to maintain health and hygiene. And therefore, we also need teachings and curriculum for mental health and hygiene as well. And therefore, in the educational system, if we were to teach these moral ethics based on religion, then it cannot be universal. And therefore, when Indian leaders drafted the Indian Constitution, they actually made a constitution which acknowledged the Indian state as being multi-religious, and therefore one religion alone cannot be sufficient for all people, and therefore they chose secularism in their constitution. And similarly, teaching morality in our education system, by using secular ethics, it would be universal. And based on some religion, it cannot be universal. And so in the last few years, how we have discussed about how to introduce this secular ethics in our educational systems. So there have been many discussions so far, and next month we are going to have a scholars meeting here in Delhi. A special meeting will be convened to discuss about secular ethics, introducing secular ethics. And also in America, we have this kind of plan. So we keep this in mind. And you need to do research also. In Russia, for example, so how to introduce secular ethics in the secular institutions, how you can make it possible in Russia, how to teach them, how to introduce them. You have to research. And pay attention to it and think about it. So I wish to say this to you. I wanted to say this to you. So I'm giving you some responsibility, in fact. Therefore, you have... Are there any professors or teachers of schools here in the audience? Any teachers, professors? So think more about these introducing secular ethics in the schools and universities. So in America, people are doing research on this, and in India also. So I thought it would be good for the Russians also to do research on this. So this is what I wanted to say. And next we'll have question and answer session.
Question answer session.
Yes. So we'll start question and answer session now. La. 우르스 계신게 말해. 알라 말해. 군주 우르스 계자디 벽에 장에 유나면서. 럼부치. 군주 디 저와 그디 좀 마이크 내야 쉐르베. 나. 마이크 줄이야 쉐르베. 나래. 알았어. 틱스. They should have more mics. The Russian interpreter said he will use the mic when he translates the question to His Holiness. But the mic is taken away.
Yes. Stop.
Хотел в первую очередь выразить огромную благодарность вам, организационному комитету, то, что вы нашли возможность и учитывая, что ваше здоровье
So he thanks His Holiness and the organizing committee for this, organizing the teaching.
Сколько в настоящее время последователей буддистов по всему миру какова тенденция увеличения последователей буддистов со стороны других религий? И что люди не могут найти своих религий? Спасибо.
So today in the world, Buddhism, the question is whether the population of Buddhists is increasing in the world or not. So regarding the Mimbor Nangba Mimbor ya Toru Dugdu Westi, Cheru Dugdu Westi. Nangbe Mimbor ya Pargu Yor Vestamulina Lang Nangba Inkent. No. So his question is basically whether the population of Buddhists is increasing in the world.
Conversion. 나와를 규리하셔야 되는 것도 전에 배지치기야 말해. 이 야고야 말해. 다이네
it's not good to try to convert people to Buddhism. No. No. But recently, when I was in Europe, I have one of my friends, a Christian professor, told me that today in the West, the believers in religion, Judeo-Christian religion, theistic religions, the people are losing faith in theistic religions. So the number is decreasing amongst the people, believers. But Buddhism doesn't talk about Creator God. And he said there are more and more people taking interest in the training of mind, which is taught in Buddhism. One obvious thing is happening in China, which is about 3 years ago, in one university, did a research on the population of Buddhists in China. And according to the research, the number was over 300 million. So most of these people are intellectuals and educated people. And my Chinese friends also tell me today the number is over 400 million. So the communist China today is the most population, has the most population of Buddhists in the world. The highest population. So the number of Buddhists in the whole world may be 1 billion. There's 1 billion Christians and 1/2 billion Hindus. So Hindus maybe 500 million or 600 million. So the number of the population of Buddhists may be 600 million or something like that in the world.
Только в России 2 миллиона безнадзорных детей. Что нам еще необходимо сделать для того, чтобы было как можно меньше детей-сирот и жестокого обращения с детьми? Я знаю, что в Тибете детей-сирот нет. Спасибо.
His Holiness talked about education, the importance of education. And I will try to be practical about what you have told us about education. So 1 billion now. Billion. Yes, the population of the world is 7 billion, and then there are 2 million children without parents. So how should we go about giving education and helping them? And then in Tibet, there are children who have no parents, the orphans. And also, so I thank you for saying that you will to pay attention to what I've said about education. So of course it's not easy to think of working for people all around the world, but first you have to start with something small. Start from with 1 or 2 schools with a good plan, systematically, and then you can spread it to nationwide, and then internationally through UN. So in this way, you should rather think broadly and deeply about implementing these in an orderly manner.
Next question. Next question.
Профессор, доктор говорит, наук Бодhisattva. Улан-Удэ, Бурятия. Скажите, пожалуйста, существуют какие основные разночтения между учеными и буддистами на формирование нравственности молодого поколения, в частности в России? Спасибо.
So actually he's asking what the different views and forming of ethical education among different scholars.
So how to... He's a professor of biology. How to spread ethical education amongst the educated people. So when I talk about Europe, a more ethical principle, I'm talking about having a warm heart. So we should think all human beings are the same. The differences that we have should be considered minor, but we should emphasize oneness of humanity. In that, all of us do not want suffering, but want happiness. So this, with the sense or recognition that we are all human beings, and then you should think of caring about others' welfare. And the most important thing is, if you have a warm heart, a compassion, love, then it also helps your own physical health as well. This is something that scientists, and especially the medical scientists, actually through their experiment have found to be the case. In America, there are universities who do research and experimentation on this. So they give training to peer students and people to meditate on or cultivate compassion and love. For a few weeks, each day using 1 hour or so. And before starting such programs, they check the physical condition of the participants. They check blood pressure and then the stress level. They examine them. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, at the end of the program, they again check the same blood pressure and the stress levels of these participants. And they find that because of becoming calmer, these participants are more friendly with others. So this is very important. So of course, through practice of morality, modern ethics, if it doesn't help you, then of course there's no use. But if it is useful, then we have to try to develop it. Recently, I saw an article written by a scientist in America. Those who teach, those who lie, often have more stress. So Dr. Barry brought that article to His Holiness, Barry Curtin. So you all have this experience. After having lied to someone with whom you have talked, then you would always feel very concerned and about what you have said, what would happen to you. If you are very honest and don't lie to others, then you feel more relaxed. So if you lie to others, it's natural that you will always feel guilty. So this is the key factor to so with money and power, there's no happy family. There's no guarantee to have happy family. People may be luxurious, but no happiness. And one time I was in America, a chancellor of America. I met him, so he's very renowned, popular, and very highly honored, and he has very high income, very good income. So when I had a conversation with him or her, in frank atmosphere, friendly atmosphere, so he told me that he has all the necessities in life, but he always felt very unhappy and is very reluctant to meet with people and wanted to stay alone. So he feels very restless. So in our conversation, he related this to me. And then later on, his thinking may have changed, perhaps, and then his co-workers and people who work under him in the university have also told me that he used to be very lonely, spending time all by himself. But then after meeting you, they told me that he was very active. He became very active, asking people to do this and that, and so education alone will not give you happiness, nor money, nor power. So you should develop awareness about the reality of things through scientific research. So through this kind of method, scientific method, we should draw happiness, try to develop happiness in ourselves. So to someone who has not received any initiation before, how should he or she go about with the visualization of a deity? So I said this yesterday. So during the initiation itself, those who have not received any initiation, I told you to visualize the medicine Buddha on your crown. In Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, what is taught is how to develop warm heart and also developing understanding of emptiness. So whether you are a Buddhist or not, whether you have received any initiation or not, it makes no difference. So amongst the Christians, there are people who actually take lessons in terms of developing warm hearts from Buddhism. He's an Orthodox Christian, and he's interested in Buddhism. He likes Buddhism. His question is, so he said, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has no responsibility to tell something to Orthodox Christian priests or. So what advice would His Holiness give to them, to these Christian, Orthodox Christians, so that they do not have to abandon their religion while taking beneficial lessons from Buddhism? So I always tell all kinds of religious practitioners, if you sincerely, you should sincerely and seriously practice your own religion. It's better to do that. As I said before, there are those religions which have philosophical background. The major religions have the same message of love, compassion, and then related to that, there's tolerance, contentment, and also self-discipline. So, and then serving others. So these are, it's very important to be practical and seriously doing this. So with regard to love and compassion, promoting it, and also in the practice of patience, and how you should see the negative or disadvantages of anger and hatred as taught in the Shantideva's text, the 6th chapter. So there may be some points which may be unique to Buddhist practice, but then there are many which can be used by all equally. So Buddhism teaches selflessness and also dependent origination, law of causality, whereas the theistic religions I've already said this before. They see God as creator.
This very life created by God. Therefore, you see, that concept really brings strong sort of feeling of intimacy with God. It's a more sort of closeness feeling, more willingness to follow God's guidance.
Will. God's will.
ways.
Will.
자, 군조 천디 군조 태가를 끄지. 너무나 이슈.
So I used to have a Christian friend. I asked him, what is wrong if the Christian believers believed in reincarnation, rebirth? He told me this life itself is created by God. And so this kind of belief is very powerful. So the closer you feel to God, and then you will be able to, you will also try to be a genuine follower of the God that you believe in. So carrying out the God's will means to be honest and not deceiving others, and to have warm heart towards others. So instead of in Buddhism, instead of believing in a creator God, we have the understanding of the teaching of selflessness. So as I said before, also this extreme self-centered attitude can be reduced through the understanding of selflessness. So this is what you may relay to your Christian colleagues. So many of the people who follow religious traditions follow them as some kind of a custom, and they're satisfied with just doing what they have been doing, taking things for granted. So rather than doing that, for example, Saint Francis Assisi. Saint Francis of Assisi, many of his prayers are very same as the prayers that we find in Bodhisattva way of life. So he prays to become light where there is darkness, and so he also prays to be a nurse to sick people. And so as I said before, there's big difference in philosophical view, but with regard to the basic message, based on that, we have the same. All the major religions have the same message. All of them acknowledge that love and compassion is beneficial to us, and therefore to promote it and to enhance the experience that we already have. Now, there are those of the theistic religions believing in God as creator. And one Muslim leader, Imam, has said that a Muslim practitioner should have the same love towards all the creature of Allah, just as they have belief and trust in God, Allah. They should also have love and compassion towards all the creatures of Allah. And so these different philosophical views were taught to promote love and compassion.
В мире в России, в том числе и в национальных республиках, в Бурятии, в Туве, Калмыкии, существует проблема коррупции, непотизма, родственности, семейственности и так далее. Вот ваш взгляд на эту проблему и не было ли это причиной падения Тибета, одной из причин падения Тибета?
In general, Buddhism, the world, in Russia, and particularly the Kalmyk and Buryat. In 1959, Tibet lost its independence. So is corruption one of the factors for Tibet to lose its independence? So regarding corruption, yeah, I'd say that it is a new cancer of the world, new cancer. So this is something we have to actually work against. We cannot remain silent about it. So the main reason why this corruption happens is because of lack of self-discipline. If you have moral principle, then, of course, if you see that if you indulge in corruption, of course there may be some, you may gain money or power, but temporarily it will help. You cannot boast about whatever you have gained to others. But if you have made money or gained power through your own effort, then that is something that you can boast to others. But not those that have come to you through corruption. If people ask you how you gained money, how you made such money and power, I mean, you would have to keep quiet about the means. So people who indulge in corruption are not happy. So they only see the immediate result. The education here is primary to work against corruption. So when you have an individualistic idea and grow up within that kind of environment, then corruption happens. So therefore, we need to make people aware through education why corruption is bad. In 1951, Tibet signed an agreement, 17-point agreement with China, Communist China. So up to that time, there was not much corruption in Tibet, but since today, corruption has increased in China. Therefore, this same cancer has also the Tibetans also have acquired this cancer. So basically, the Tibetans have this good culture, compassionate culture. And many Chinese who actually pay attention and do some research on Tibetan, they find Tibetans to be very moral, compassionate. Many Chinese say this, and many Western tourists who go to Tibet, they say Tibetans are honest and they always smile. So a friend of mine, Westerner, said he traveled to Lhasa from Beijing by train. And on the train, for many hours, he found that the Tibetans to be very humble and moral, and not Chinese. So there is this natural trait in the Tibetans to be honest and moral, and also caring about others' life.
Буддизм очень четко объясняется причиной, зачем быть нравственным, то есть это последствия кармы. А в остальном мире эти объяснения не очень конкретны. Как объяснить детям и другим людям, зачем, причина, зачем им быть нравственным?
Gadgets.
In Buddhism, there are very clear reasons. Reasons are very clearly explained of being ethical, but in the other parts of the world, in other religions, they are not explained that clearly. So, how it is possible to explain to the others of the reasons of importance of the reasons of being
moral?
Yeah, moral.
Yes. So the question is basically, in Buddhism, there are many reasons that are given to for us to be ethical, whereas in other religions there is not much explanation of that. So how do we explain the importance of ethical morality to others who follow other religious traditions? Yes. So as I said earlier, the similar. Those theistic religious followers, so all the religious traditions, not only theistic ones, see their own highest God or whatever highest power they believe in is seen as being infinite love.
Infinite love. So
nobody says God is full of anger. So all acknowledge God to be of infinite love. So it clearly shows that we human beings consider love and compassion to be very important, positive quality. And so all religions teach this. So of course there is difference in the different religious traditions as to the explanation, whether there is detailed explanation of the love and compassion. So the theistic religious followers believe that through their single-pointed belief in God, they will be born in paradise. The Indian traditions, including Buddhism, where there is the practice or cultivation of shamatha and vipassana, which have to, of course, come through training of mind, and therefore there's no way to go about this without explaining about the mind. So the training has to be done on the basis of the mind, and not based on some external matter. And religions which have the practice of shamatha and vipassana have more explanation, plain explanation of mind, and therefore the positive principles of love and compassion and their counterparts, anger and hatred, are taught. And so love and compassion is taught in all religious traditions.
Ваше Святейшество, этика – это свод правил добрых знаний. Но как и где найти мир измерения для всех религий нашей страны? Ведь часто бывает, что творится мое зло, но оно творится во имя добра. И наши добрые дела иногда имеют плохие результаты. Во имя религии и стран, во имя добра происходят войны. Что делать старшим на культах Читы, когда политика твоей страны идет вразрез с этикой и логикой? Но каждый из нас зависит от большинства избранников, от большинства избранных руководством этой страны.
Можно вашу бумажку, пожалуйста?
He's saying ethics is a combination of rules of goodness and heaven.
But there are different dimensions for this goodness and error in every religion and country.
Goodness and error. So, but there's difference in the goodness and error.
That people do something evil in the name of good.
That people make mistakes in the name of doing something good.
So sometimes in the name of religion, they put wars in the world in the name of religion. So what a Buddhist should do, a Buddhist who journeys by the way of Bodhisattva,
What should a Buddhist who trained in the Bodhisattva way of life should do?
What last sentence? Not clear.
The last sentence is, so what should a Buddhist do who is practicing the way of Bodhisattva when policy of the country completely contradicts ethics and logic?
Oh, no.
Everybody of us depends on the majority and the government of the country.
Bodhisattva mas chanjusem nyamne chingis. Godi card. Godi card. Godi. Chiwa godi card. Ale.
Ethics is a conglomerate of rules of evil and good.
So basically the question is about ethics being a combination of error and goodness. But how should someone who practices bodhicitta deal with goodness and error when in the policy of a country there's emphasis on power and so forth? So when you talk about compassion and love and being ethical, it helps, and these actually help others and oneself. So if you look at dogs or animals, if you help them, if you care about them, show kindness, then they also appreciate you. Whereas if you rather try to be show them a very serious or dark face, then they also don't appreciate. So even amongst the dogs and cats, the more compassionate and loving they are amongst their species, the others also love them. Whereas someone, if they are more like angry and fighting with others, the others in their species also avoid them. So having physical health through love and compassion is something which has to do with our biological factor. So if you are full of anxiety and fear and then distrust or dissent, and some medical scientists, no. So if you are overcome with anger and anxiety too much, then the immune system, our immune system, they actually eat into our immune system. And therefore, so something which the ethics that what I refer to by ethics is something which is loved by even the animals. Like, so therefore, it is something universal. I said this before. Some of my friends say that ethics has to be based on religion, but that doesn't become universal. According to Buddhism, the difference between violence and non-violence, the demarcation cannot be done merely on the basis of action. It depends on our motivation. For example, with a good motivation to help someone sincerely, a teacher or to a student or parents to their children, or between friends. When the other friend makes some mistake, and the parents, teachers, and your friends might use some harsh language and may actually show anger, but the physical and verbal expressions may be harsh, but because they are motivated by the wish to help you, then it's basically non-violent. On the contrary, in order to, with motivation to deceive somebody or to make some gain or profit, you may use a nice language and give gifts or invite them to some meal. The action seems very non-violent, but the motivation, because of the motivation, it is basically, essentially violence. And therefore, violence and non-violence cannot be differentiated on the basis of the action, but on the basis of the motivation. So with the sense to help someone, to benefit him,
some sort of wrathful.
Apparently your action may be wrathful or violent.
That action comes out of sense of concern, sense of compassion. So there's essentially non-violence. Now here,
so with regard to working of the mind, we have all kinds all the different kinds of thought processes are related to one another. For example, anger is a wrathful or very rough state of mind. But with the motivation of compassion, you could become angry at somebody. But then you could also become angry and show wrath to others with the motivation of hatred. And then you can have love with attachment, which is motivated by attachment. So that's not something good. On the other hand, when you see others to be the same as yourself, not wanting suffering but happiness, this kind of compassion can extend even to your enemies, so-called enemies. And so there's no attachment involved there. So that is genuine compassion. So this can come through training of mind. It's not something that can happen based on our biological factors. So biological, when we have biased attitude, then of course there's attachment. So I told you about the Chilean physicist who said that he should not be attached to his own field of research. So we are, as Buddhists, of course, we appreciate the teachings of the Buddha, but we should not be attached to Buddhism. So as I quoted earlier also, Chandrakirti's, if you become attached to one's own system, then you will develop aversion to other systems. So therefore, you should not have aversion or attachment. Without having attachment or aversion, you have to be unbiased and then check the teachings, whether they're right or wrong. Yes. So we have wrathful deities, but they're motivated by compassion. But then in the moment of dealing with the situations, there is this wrathful appearance.
Третий благородный истин, посещение стахания, говорит о том, что состояние просветления, пробуждения необратимо. Основные логические доводы, доказывающие.
Nijin, right? Nijun. Right, go wash your canum niji. Yes. So the question is about the four characteristics or attributes of the third noble truth of cessation, and the fourth attribute is Nye-jin, which is definite emergence, the result. So what is the reason to prove that? So with regard to the 16 attributes of the 16 attributes of the Four Noble Truths, so with regard to selflessness and emptiness, they can be extended to not only the cessation, so the attributes of the suffering are explained from the point of view of the suffering, and then the attributes of the cessation are explained from the point of view of the benefit that you draw with regard to cessation. And then the attributes of the true path are perhaps explained from the point of view of the function of the path. I'm not clear about it, so this is. So regarding the by putting effort, what happens is you are able to put an end to the causes of suffering, the suffering. Therefore, it's called cessation. Regarding the four attributes of cessation, true cessation. And it is the second attribute is peace. So the causes which otherwise give rise to suffering are put in end to, or blocked through the application of your antidote, and therefore you have the true cessation. And then peace here doesn't mean just the absence of the negative forces, but it is this total freedom from all the negativity, defilements. And so ceasing, putting an end to the causes of suffering through antidote. And once you have overcome these negativities, they cannot come again. And then the true path gives rise to the cessation. And then path here is not just imagination, but a path which actually sees the reality as it is. And not only living at realizing the reality, but actually familiarizing your mind over and over on the it. And therefore you put an end to the cause of suffering completely and lead yourself out of these problems. And therefore it's called Ngejin, or the thorough, definite liberation. What she's asking, what does His Holiness think about the development of Buddhism in Tuva? Yes, it's been a very long time since I have not been to Tuva. So, so of course you all have good interest and you pay attention.
Genuine desire to fully revive Buddha Dharma and to gain better knowledge about Buddha Dharma. So it is a good start, good sign. So now make effort. Yes.
Казахстан, город Уральск, частная школа своей собственной школы. Ваше Величество, мы уже имеем опыт внедрения в системе школьного образования нравственной этики. И мы имеем очень положительный результат в течение 10 лет. Нам
Не хватает присутствия буддийского учителя для изучения буддийской логики в нашей школе. Мы можем рассчитывать на помощь в организации этого проекта со стороны буддийских учителей. Спасибо.
She has experience of teaching ethics to children. To teach ethics. So can they count on Buddhist teachers to teach logic in their schools?
I think you should keep contact with us through Dalai Rinpoche. I think if some sort of teacher available around your own area, and then much easier. Or even if necessary, send from India. Yes, it is very possible. We can send. So like 6 months or 1 year, certainly we can do. Now last 2 questions.
Санкт-Петербург. Ваше Святейшество, очень огромная просьба уделить внимание детскому просвещению и разъяснению принципов любви и состраданию. Детскому имеется в виду даже дошкольному, поскольку у нас взрослых уже сформировала личность, эго, и, соответственно, детям это донести принципы легче. Так, и вопрос такой, как детям, вот именно дошкольного, может быть, возраста, объяснить, что такое любовь к себе и что такое любовь к другим людям. Вот эту вот разницу проследить. И под конец, надеюсь, что в 2013 году будет организована при вашем участии буддийская конференция для детей. С небольшим слоганом. Просьба такая, детей не забыть, внимание свое вам им подарить. Спасибо.
Yes.
The question was, how is possible to teach children for preschool children?
How to teach? How is it possible to teach preschool children?
Love to self and love to others. And the second
difference between loving others and loving
is it
self.
possible to organize a conference, Buddhist conference for children in 2013, so that children are given some attention and not forgotten?
Is it possible to hold a conference for children? So regarding the teaching of secular ethics, the program that we have to set up should be something which can be used from kindergarten up to university level, starting with a basic program and then expanding it and on that as you go into the higher institutions. So it's important to have a conference to teach children, preschool children, in 2013. So in order to create a happy society in the future and also happy family, it is very important to discuss about these issues in the conference. If you listen through the internet teachings and initiations, will you receive teachings and transmissions and initiations, and also explanatory guided teachings can be received. Of course, transmissions, reading transmissions you can receive, and also guided instruction teachings can be received through internet. But regarding initiation, if the teacher has the awareness that such and such people are listening to this initiation or are intending to receive initiation, then perhaps with that awareness, if he intends to give the initiation, maybe it's possible. So with regard to ordination, there were people during the time of the Buddha so there was a procedure of ordaining people who lived in other parts, other regions where Buddha could not be there in person, by communicating through the messages. And so there should be awareness and recognition between the audience and the teacher, and that this initiation is happening, and there should be this intention to receive initiation.
Now, so I really enjoy our meeting last few days. I feel fulfillment. Right?
Fulfilled. No.
All my sort of commitment. So thank you very much.